nobody had planned to become wildlife experts. That was not on anyone's agenda for the week. Rumi had a vocal session scheduled. Mira had a snack restock to do. Zoey had a book she was 3 chapters from finishing. Jinu had absolutely nothing planned, because Jinu never planned anything, and everything just happened around him anyway. Bobby had a very full clipboard and 0 space on it for wildlife. And yet, here they all were, standing in front of a large sign that said Greenfield Wildlife Conservation, CENTRE, in cheerful green letters, with a smaller sign underneath that said Home to over 200 species, and an even smaller sign underneath that said Please do not feed the animals, which Mira read, and immediately put her rice crackers back in her pocket. How they had gotten here was a story in itself. It had started with Bobby. Bobby had received a letter 3 weeks ago from the Greenfield Wildlife Conservation Center. A beautiful letter on good paper that explained that the center was struggling, that they needed more visitors and more awareness, and that they had heard HUNTRX cared deeply about the world and wondered if they might consider visiting and perhaps sharing the experience with their followers. Bobby had read the letter twice, made a note on his clipboard, and presented it to Rumi with the quiet confidence of someone who already knew what the answer would be. Rumi had read it once and said yes immediately, and then somehow, through a chain of events that involved Jinu overhearing a phone call and telling the other Saja Boys, and the Saja Boys collectively deciding they were coming, and Bobby sighing the sigh of a man who had learned to simply expand the itinerary. There were 9 of them standing in the car park of the Greenfield Wildlife Conservation Center on a bright Tuesday morning, with the kind of fresh, clean air that only exists far from cities, and that made Mira breathe in very deeply and say, "Oh, that's good air. That is genuinely excellent air." Derpy was in his carrier, which he was tolerating with his usual dignified resignation. His nose was pressed against the carrier mesh, and he was taking in the smells of the conservation center with the focused intensity of a cat encountering an entirely new category of information. The center director, a woman named Dr. Amara, came out to meet them. She was small and energetic, with short, natural hair, and paint on her left hand from something she had been doing before they arrived, and the kind of warm, direct eye contact that told you immediately she was someone who knew exactly what she was doing and loved it completely. She shook everyone's hands, including Bobby's clipboard hand, which Bobby appreciated, and she looked at Derpy's carrier with great interest and said, "Is that a cat?" "That is Derpy," said Rumi. Dr. Amara looked at Derpy. Derpy looked at Dr. Amara. Something was established between them immediately. The recognition of 2 beings who are both very serious about their respective areas of expertise. "He can come in," said Dr. Amara. "We have a policy against pets in the center generally, but he looks like he will behave professionally." Derpy's amber eyes said that he would behave professionally, and also he found the suggestion, he might not somewhat beneath it. He will, Rumi confirmed. They went in. The first thing that hit you inside the Greenfield Wildlife Conservation Center was the sound. Not loud sounds, not alarming sounds, but layered and constant and alive. The sound of 200 species going about their Tuesday morning business, calls and movements and rustlings, and the particular quiet industry of creatures living their lives. Mira stopped just inside the entrance and stood very still with her eyes wide. I can hear so many things, she said softly. 200 species, said Dr. Amara with a smile. You learn to identify them individually after a while. Right now, you are hearing everything at once, which is how the natural world actually sounds. It takes practice to hear one thing at a time. Can you hear individual ones now? The feathered hat Saja Boy asked Dr. Amara. I can hear 17 distinct calls right now just standing here, she said. Give me a moment. She closed her eyes and listened for a few seconds, her face relaxed and attentive. A red-crowned crane, 2 of them, near the water feature to the east. Sulcata tortoise, moving slowly near the reptile house. They make a surprisingly audible sound when they walk. 3 species of weaver bird in the tree canopy above the African section. They are currently having a disagreement about nesting rights. A capybara who is unhappy about something. I will need to check on that. And something I cannot immediately identify, which means either one of our residents is doing something unusual. Or we have a visitor I don't know about yet. Everyone stared at her. That, said Jinu, is genuinely impressive. It took 11 years, Dr. Amara said simply, and started walking. Come, we begin with the mammals. Now, a guided tour of a wildlife conservation center with HUNTRX and the Saja Boys is an experience that covers a great deal of educational ground and also covers a great deal of other ground that is harder to categorize but is very entertaining. The mammals section was first, and it began with the meerkats. Meerkats, Dr. Amara explained as they approached the enclosure, are small carnivorous mammals native to the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa. They live in groups called mobs, or gangs, typically of 20 to 30 individuals, and they are extraordinarily social creatures with complex communication systems and clearly defined roles within the group. They post sentries, rotating guard duty among the members of the mob, with the sentry climbing to the highest available point and watching for predators while making specific alert calls that tell the rest of the group exactly what kind of threat is approaching and from which direction. Wait, said the Saja Boy, looking at the meerkats, who were arranged around their enclosure in various poses of alert attention, several of them standing on their hind legs in the characteristic meerkat posture, small and upright and intensely focused. They have different calls for different threats, specific ones, Dr. Amara confirmed. There is a distinct call for aerial predators, a different one for ground predators, and a different one again for snakes. The rest of the mob responds differently to each call. For an aerial predator, they run for cover underground. For a ground predator, they mob together to look larger. For a snake, they gather around it and harass it until it leaves. They have a whole communication system, said Zoey. A sophisticated one, Dr. Amara said. They also teach it. Adult meerkats actively teach the young ones how to handle prey, starting with dead prey, then injured prey, then live prey in a structured progression. They are among the very few non-human animals that engage in deliberate teaching. They teach their children, Mira said, watching a small young meerkat who was following an adult around with the focused attention of a student. Actively and intentionally, Dr. Amara said. The adults assess what the young one is ready to learn and adjust accordingly. Bobby does that, said the toast Saja Boy. Everyone looked at the toast Saja Boy. Bobby assesses what we are ready to learn and adjusts accordingly. The toast Saja Boy said, completely seriously. Bobby made a small note on his clipboard. The note said, accurate, with 1 star. They moved on to the African elephants. And this was where things became genuinely extraordinary. The Greenfield Center had 3 African elephants, 2 females named Kessie and Amina, and a younger male named Kofi, who was 7 years old, and who was, Dr. Amara explained with evident fondness, currently going through what could only be described as a teenage phase. African elephants, Dr. Amara told them as they stood at the observation area watching Kessie move slowly and magnificently across the large enclosure, are the largest land animals on Earth. An adult female weighs between 2,700 and 3,600 kilograms. Their brains are the largest of any land animal, weighing about 5 kilograms. They have excellent long-term memory. They recognize individual humans and other elephants they have not seen for years. They demonstrate empathy and grief. They communicate through sounds that range from the audible rumbles everyone can hear to infrasound, vibrations below the range of human hearing that travel through the ground and can be detected by other elephants through their feet from distances of several kilometers. They talk through their feet, the feathered hat Saja Boy said, looking at his own feet and then at the elephants. Through the ground, Dr. Amara clarified. They have specialized cells in their feet that are extraordinarily sensitive to vibrations. They can detect another elephant's footsteps from kilometers away. During drought, elephant herds have been documented changing direction in response to distant rainfall that no human instrument could detect, almost certainly because they felt the vibrations of the rain hitting the ground far away. They can feel rain from kilometers away, Rumi said softly. Through their feet, Dr. Amara confirmed. Rumi looked at Kessie, who was moving across the enclosure with the slow, unhurried grace of something very large and very ancient, and thought about what it would be like to feel the world through your feet. To stand on the earth and hear it speaking back to you from far away. Do they grieve? Zoey asked. You mentioned grief. Yes, Dr. Amara said, and her voice was different here, quieter. When an elephant dies, the herd will stay with the body for days. They touch the bones with their trunks. They return to places where family members died, sometimes years later, and stand there quietly. We do not fully understand what they experience, but the behavior is consistent and specific, and there is no explanation for it that does not involve something we would recognize as mourning. A silence fell over the group. Even Mira, who had been eating a rice cracker quietly, put it away. Young Kofi had come to the fence and was looking at them with his small, bright eyes. He was much smaller than Kessie and Amina, but still enormous, his ears moving gently, his trunk investigating the air. "Can we?" Mira said, looking at Dr. Amara. "He initiates contact," Dr. Amara said. "If he comes close enough and puts his trunk toward you, you can let him smell your hand. Don't reach for him." Kofi's trunk extended toward the fence, toward Mira specifically, the end of it opening and closing gently as he pulled in her scent. Mira held out her hand very still. The end of Kofi's trunk touched her palm. It was warm and dry and surprisingly gentle for something attached to a 7-year-old elephant. Mira stood absolutely still. Her face was doing several things at once. Awe and delight, and something deeper underneath both of those things. Something that looked like the feeling you get when you make contact with something truly other. Something whose whole experience of the world is so different from yours that the moment of connection feels remarkable precisely because of that difference. "Hi," Mira whispered. "Hi, Kofi." Kofi's trunk moved over her hand and then withdrew, and he looked at her with his small, bright eye for a moment, and then turned and walked back toward Kessie with the unhurried dignity of a young elephant who has assessed the situation and found it satisfactory. Mira lowered her hand slowly. "Okay," she said. "Okay. That was the best thing that has ever happened to me." "You said that about the dream garden," Rumi said. "Both things are true," Mira said firmly, and nobody argued. Jinu had been very quiet during the elephant section. He was still looking at Kessie, and the rest of the group began to move toward the next area. And Bobby let everyone go ahead and waited for him. "The infrasound," Jinu said, still looking at Kessie, feeling the world through the ground. "Yes," Bobby said. "We do something similar," Jinu said slowly. "When we move between the waking world and the dreaming one, there is something you feel rather than hear. A frequency, a vibration in things." He paused. "I always thought it was just us, our particular ability. But maybe it is older than that. Maybe it is something the world does, and we just learned to feel it." Bobby looked at him for a moment. Then he made a note on his clipboard. Then he said, "That is a very interesting thought, Jinu." "Don't put it on the clipboard," Jinu said. "It is already on the clipboard," Bobby said. They moved on. The bird section was next. And this was where things got considerably more chaotic, which was perhaps inevitable given that it was a large open aviary. dozens of species flying freely overhead. And Mira had, despite having put her rice crackers away at the elephant enclosure, found a different kind of cracker in a different pocket that she had produced at exactly the wrong moment. Dr. Amara was explaining the African gray parrot, a species of extraordinary intelligence. She said that the cognitive abilities of a 5-year-old human child. They can learn hundreds of words and use them meaningfully in context, not just repeating them, but applying them to new situations. A famous African gray named Alex, studied by Dr. Irene Pepperberg for 30 years, could identify objects, colors, shapes, and materials, understand the concept of zero, and when told an object was green, and he knew perfectly well it was not, would say no with the confident specificity of an animal that knows it is right. He argued, said the sound desk Saja Boy, who had his notebook out. He argued with researchers. He did, Dr. Amara said, and he was usually correct when he did. Smart bird, said the sound desk Saja Boy, writing this down. One of the smartest animals we know of, Dr. Amara confirmed. The African gray in our center, his name is Professor, and he has been here for 12 years, and he has strong opinions about everyone on the staff. What kind of opinions? The feathered hat Saja Boy asked. He likes our head keeper, Dr. James, very much, and greets him by name every morning. He tolerates most of the others. He has never forgiven our Tuesday volunteer Marcus for something that happened in 2019, and none of us know what it was. He holds grudges, Jinu said. Exceptionally well, Dr. Amara said. It was at this point that Mira's cracker situation became relevant, because a very large and very confident macaw, deep blue and gold, had spotted the cracker from across the aviary with the laser focus of a bird that knows what crackers are and has opinions about who should have them, and had flown directly to Mira's shoulder without any warning, and was now sitting there looking at the cracker with an expression that brooked no negotiation. Mira froze. She looked at the macaw. The macaw looked at the cracker. That, said Dr. Amara, with the calm of someone who has seen this before, is Captain. He is a blue and gold macaw. He is 34 years old, which means he is middle-aged for his species, as they can live to 80. And he has been doing exactly this for the entire 12 years he has been here. He particularly targets people with food. He is on my shoulder, Mira said, very still. Yes, said Dr. Amara. He is quite heavy, Mira said. 900 grams, Dr. Amara confirmed. You can give him a small piece of the cracker if you like. He will not leave until you do. Will he take my finger off? Mira asked. He has the beak strength to crack a Brazil nut, Dr. Amara said. But he has never bit anyone. He is rude, but not violent. Mira very carefully broke off a small piece of cracker and held it out, and Captain took it from her fingers with a precision that was genuinely impressive. A beak that could crack a Brazil nut, taking a small piece of cracker from a human fingertip, with with the delicacy of someone picking up a very small thing very carefully, and ate it with great satisfaction, and then looked at her for more. "He wants more," Mira said. "He always wants more," Dr. Amara said. "But we keep him on a balanced diet, so tell him no." "Tell the macaw no," Mira said. Firmly, Dr. Amara said. Mira looked at Captain. Captain looked at Mira with the bright, unblinking gaze of a 34-year-old macaw who has got what he wants from humans for 34 years and has no reason to expect this to change. "No more," Mira said. Captain ruffled his feathers, settled them, looked at her for another moment, then stepped off her shoulder and flew back to his perch with the unhurried dignity of someone who has made their point and is now choosing to move on. "He accepted it," Mira said, somewhat amazed. "He understands no," Dr. Amara said. "He simply prefers yes. He and Jinu have a lot in common," the feathered hat Saja Boy said. Jinu said nothing, but looked at the macaw with an expression of what might have been professional respect. The reptile house was next, and it was here that the toast Saja Boy discovered something unexpected about himself, which was that he found reptiles absolutely fascinating in a way he had not anticipated, and which surprised everyone, including him. Dr. Amara led them through the warm, dim interior of the reptile house, past the habitats of animals that moved with a slow alien grace that was utterly different from the warm, energetic mammal section, or the busy, chaotic bird aviary. Here everything was still and precise, and ancient in a way that made you aware, very specifically, that reptiles had been on this earth for approximately 320 million years, and had spent those years perfecting exactly the things they needed to be perfect at without any particular need for anyone else's input. The Komodo dragon was the first stop. The largest lizard in the world, Dr. Amara said, can grow to 3 meters in length and weigh up to 70 kilograms. Native to a handful of Indonesian islands, has a forked tongue that collects scent particles from the air and delivers them to a specialized organ in the roof of its mouth called the Jacobson's organ, which processes the information in the same way a nose processes smell, but with greater complexity, effectively giving the Komodo dragon the ability to taste the air, can detect prey from up to 10 kilometers away using this system. "It tastes the air," said the toast Saja Boy, watching the Komodo dragon with absolute focus. Constantly, Dr. Amara said, every flick of the tongue is a sensory sweep of the environment, so it always knows exactly what is around it. The toast Saja Boy said, in extraordinary detail, Dr. Amara confirmed. The toast Saja Boy was quiet for a long moment, watching the Komodo dragon's tongue flick. Then he said, "I want to know everything about this animal." Dr. Amara looked at him with the expression of someone who recognizes genuine interest when she sees it. "Come with me," she said. and led him to the keeper note station at the side of the enclosure, and opened the research binder, and the toast Saja boy sat down on the keeper's stool and started reading with the focused attention of someone who has just found something they needed without knowing that they were looking for it. Bobby had to come back for him 15 minutes later, when the group had moved on and he was still reading. "It has venom," the toast Saja boy said to Bobby without looking up. "2 venom glands in the lower jaw. Nobody knew for years because the prey dies from blood loss before the venom takes full effect, and everyone assumed the bacteria in the bite was the cause. They only discovered the venom glands in 2009. "Fascinating," said Bobby. "It can also reproduce without a male," the toast Saja boy said. "Parthenogenesis. The females can produce offspring from unfertilized eggs, and the offspring are always male. So a female on an island alone can produce males who then mate with her to establish a full population. We should catch up with the others," Bobby said. "1 more minute," said the toast Saja boy. "You said that 8 minutes ago," Bobby said. The toast Saja boy closed the binder reluctantly and stood up and followed Bobby out of the reptile house. But he asked Dr. Amara if he could have a copy of the research notes on the Komodo dragon, and she said she would email them to him, and he thanked her with a sincerity that made her smile. The capybara enclosure was where things took another unexpected turn, and this one involved Derpy. Capybaras, Dr. Amara explained, are the largest rodents in the world, native to South America. Semi-aquatic, excellent swimmers can hold their breath for up to 5 minutes and sleep in water with just their nostrils above the surface. They are extraordinarily sociable and famously get along with almost every other animal they encounter. There are many documented cases of capybaras peacefully coexisting with animals that would normally be predators, sitting calmly beside crocodiles, being groomed by monkeys, sharing space with birds who use them as perches. They seem to communicate a kind of fundamental harmlessness that other animals understand immediately. The Greenfield Center had 4 capybaras, large, gentle, barrel-shaped animals who were doing their Tuesday morning things near their water feature. They looked at the group with their warm, square faces and calm, dark eyes, and radiated the specific energy of animals who have never in their lives felt the need to be anything other than exactly what they are. Rumi had been carrying Derpy in her arms rather than the carrier for the last section, because Derpy had made his feelings about the carrier clear with a sustained and pointed silence that was somehow worse than complaining. And Derpy had been observing everything with his professional amber gaze. Now Derpy looked at the capybaras. The capybaras looked at Derpy, and Derpy, to the absolute astonishment of everyone who knew him, made a sound. Not his usual sounds, not the emrow of opinion, or the chirp of interest, or the silent judgment of the amber stare. Something softer and more tentative. A small, questioning sound, almost gentle. One of the capybaras, the The largest one walked slowly to the fence and looked at Derpy with its calm, dark eyes. Derpy looked back. The capybara made a sound of its own, a low, soft, purring click that Dr. Amara said was a capybara contentment sound. Then it sat down right by the fence and continued looking at Derpy with perfect peace. Derpy looked at it for a long moment. Then he slowly, very slowly, extended one blue paw toward the fence. The capybara leaned its enormous, gentle face toward the paw. They stayed like that for almost a full minute, while everyone watched in absolute silence. "What is happening?" the Saja boy whispered. "I think," Zoey said softly, "that Derpy has found a friend." "The capybara gets along with everyone," Dr. Amara said quietly, watching with warm professional interest. "But your cat initiated. That is unusual. Cats are typically territorial with unknown animals." He reached out. Rumi looked at Derpy, at his paw extended toward the fence, at his amber eyes soft in a way she had never quite seen them before. "He recognizes something," she said. "I don't know what, but he recognizes something in it. They are both observers," Zoey said. "They both watch everything with great attention and do not feel the need to explain themselves." Everyone considered this and found it entirely accurate. Eventually, Derpy withdrew his paw and settled back in Rumi's arms with his usual composure. But he looked back at the capybara once as they moved away. A single amber glance, and the capybara watched him go with the same calm, unhurried attention it brought to everything. Lunch was next, and Dr. Amara took them to the center staff room, a warm, practical room with long tables and good light. And the center cook had made enough for everyone. A big, warm meal that was exactly right for a morning of walking and learning. And they sat around the tables together, all 9 of them and Dr. Amara, and several of the keepers who joined them. And the conversation was alive in the way it gets when people have been genuinely interested in things and want to talk about them. The feathered hat Saja Boy wanted to know more about meerkat teaching. The sound desk Saja Boy wanted to discuss elephant infrasound and its potential relationship to things he had observed in dream acoustics. A conversation that Dr. Amara followed with polite interest and growing fascination. The toast Saja Boy was reading the Komodo dragon emails Dr. Amara had sent him. The socks Saja Boy was asking one of the keepers about the capybara's social structure. Bobby was eating his lunch and making notes simultaneously with the efficiency of a man who has learned to do both at once. Rumi sat next to Dr. Amara and asked her something she had been thinking about since the elephant section. "When did you know this was what you wanted to do? Work with animals." Dr. Amara thought about it. "I was 7, she said. I found a bird with a broken wing in my garden. I did not know how to fix it. I tried anyway. It died." She paused. "I cried for 2 days, and then I decided I needed to learn how so that the next time I would know. I have been learning ever since." She looked around her center at the keepers, at the sounds coming through the walls. grief can become purpose if you let it. The bird died. But because of that bird, I have helped hundreds of animals live. Rumi was quiet for a moment. That's a really important thing to know, she said. It is, Dr. Amara said. And it applies to more than wildlife conservation. After lunch, Dr. Amara took them to the section of the center that was not on the public tour. The rehabilitation wing, where animals that had been injured or rescued from illegal wildlife trade were being cared for before release back into the wild, or for those who could not be safely released, permanent protected sanctuary. This was different from the public section, quieter, more serious. The animals here were in various stages of recovery, and the keepers moved among them with focused, gentle attention that was its own kind of language. There was a young leopard named Safi, who had been rescued from a wildlife trafficker at 4 months old, and who was now 18 months, and large and beautiful, and wild in the way that properly wild things are wild, not aggressive, but simply fully itself, looking out at the world from its rehabilitation enclosure with golden eyes that contained no domesticity whatsoever. Safi would be released in 3 months to a protected reserve in Kenya. Dr. Amara explained that the rehabilitation team had been very careful not to let Safi become comfortable with humans, keeping contact minimal and practical. Because a leopard that trusts humans in the wild is a leopard in danger. You keep your distance on purpose, Rumi said, even though you want to be closer, because we want her to survive, Dr. Amara said. Sometimes love looks like distance. Sometimes the kindest thing is to remain a stranger. Jinu, who was standing slightly to the side, looking at Safi through the observation window, said nothing. But something in his expression shifted. There was a sea turtle named Gabriel, who had been found tangled in fishing net, and who had lost one flipper, and who would never be able to return to the ocean, but who moved through his large tank with such evident adaptation and ease that after a few minutes of watching him, you stopped noticing the missing flipper entirely and just saw the turtle moving through the water with 3 flippers, as though 3 had always been the right number for him. He adapted, the feathered hat Saja Boys said. Within about 6 weeks, the keeper caring for him said, they are remarkable for adaptation. The brain reorganizes itself around the new reality very quickly. He just got on with it, Mira said. That's what living things do, the keeper said simply. When they can, they get on with it. There was a family of meerkats that had been rescued from a laboratory where they had been used in an experiment that Dr. Amara described briefly and without drama, but which left everyone quiet. The meerkats were doing well. They had rebuilt their social structure in the rehabilitation enclosure with impressive speed, reestablishing the sentry rota and the teaching hierarchy, and all the complex machinery of meerkat society that they had been maintaining for millennia before anyone decided to interfere with it. They were going to be released in 4 months to a protected area in the Kalahari. They remember how how to be meerkats, Zoey said, watching them. They never forgot, Dr. Amara said. You can disrupt the conditions, but you cannot disrupt what something fundamentally is. Eventually, the conditions improve, and the thing returns to itself. The afternoon continued, and more things were learned. They learned that octopuses have 3 hearts and blue blood and 9 brains, 1 central brain and 1 in each arm, which means each arm can act independently, and sometimes does, solving problems the central brain has not yet addressed. They learned that crows not only use tools, but make tools, crafting hooks from wire to retrieve food from containers, something that requires planning for a future state that does not yet exist. They learned that humpback whale song changes over time. As new phrases spread through populations across entire ocean basins, the way songs spread through human cultures. One whale learning from another across thousands of kilometers of deep water. They learned that the Amazon River dolphin, the pink bodo, is pink because blood vessels close to the skin's surface flush with blood when the dolphin is excited, the way humans blush. And that bodo are considered by several Amazon communities to be magical creatures that take human form at night and attend parties, which Mira said she found entirely believable. They learned that elephants are afraid of bees, specifically the sound of bees, and that conservation programs have used this to create bee fence barriers around farmland to keep elephants from raiding crops, protecting both the crops and the elephants from the conflict that would otherwise occur. They learned that ravens, like elephants, grieve their dead and hold what appear to be vigils, gathering silently around a fallen raven and remaining still before disbanding. And that researchers who study raven behavior call these gatherings funerals because no other word quite fits. They learned that giraffes hum, not loudly, very quietly, at night, for reasons that are not yet fully understood. The discovery was only made in 2015 when researchers placed recording equipment in giraffe enclosures overnight and captured the sound for the first time. Giraffes have been on this earth for millions of years and were humming quietly through all of it, and nobody knew. Millions of years of quiet humming, and we only just found out, the feathered hat Saja Boys said, looking at the giraffe in the center's giraffe enclosure, which was enormous and magnificent, and currently eating leaves from a tall tree with the serene focus of an animal that has perfected this activity over considerable time. There are probably things the giraffe knows about us that we don't know it knows, Dr. Amara said. Every animal is observing us as we observe it. We just tend to forget that. The feathered hat Saja Boy looked at the giraffe with new seriousness. The giraffe ate its leaves with complete indifference. The last stop of the day was Dr. Amara's favorite place in the entire center, she said, and she had saved it for last deliberately. It was the nocturnal house, a dim, warm building where the lighting was reversed, dark during the day to allow the nocturnal animals to be active during visiting hours, few minutes for everyone's eyes to adjust. When they did, the room revealed itself as a different world entirely. Slow lorises moving through branches with their enormous round eyes. Bats hanging and sleeping and occasionally shifting. Hedgehogs going about their small, precise business. A bush baby, tiny and perfect with eyes so large relative to its head that it looked like something designed to make people say oh, which it had in fact been evolutionarily optimized for. Dr. Amara explained, because large eyes in nocturnal primates collect more light and allow better night vision. And the fact that humans find them adorable is a coincidence of biology. The aardvark was there, large and strange, and moving with the focused purposefulness of an animal that knows exactly where it is going and what it is going to do when it gets there, which was find termites. Because aardvarks eat approximately 50,000 termites in a single night, using their long, sticky tongue and their extraordinary sense of smell. 50,000, said the Saja boy. A night, Dr. Amara confirmed. That's commitment, the Saja boy said. They are very committed animals, Dr. Amara agreed. The pangolin was the one that silenced everyone completely. Dr. Amara had told them earlier that pangolins were the most trafficked mammal in the world, that all 8 species were threatened or endangered because of demand for their scales and meat, and that the center had 2 pangolins that had been rescued from traffickers and could not be released because they had been in captivity too long, and the skills needed for survival had not been properly established in their early months. The pangolin was curled into a ball in the corner of its habitat, its scales overlapping with perfect geometric precision, a living pinecone. And then, as they watched it slowly uncurled and moved, and the movement was extraordinary, deliberate, and ancient, and its small face with its tiny eyes looked out at the room with a quality of absolute vulnerability that was very hard to look at and not feel something large about. How many are left? Jinu asked quietly. Unknown, Dr. Amara said. The populations are difficult to count because they are so secretive and nocturnal. But the trafficking numbers suggest that wild populations are in serious trouble. What can people do? Rumi asked. No, they exist, Dr. Amara said. That sounds small, but it is not. Most people have never heard of a pangolin. If you do not know something exists, you cannot care about it. And if you do not care about it, you cannot protect it. She looked at the pangolin, which had curled back into its ball with the patient precision of an animal that has been curling into a ball for 80 million years because it works. The most important thing most people can do for wildlife is pay attention. Learn the names. Tell other people. Make the invisible visible. A long silence in the dim, warm, nocturnal house. Then Mira said, quietly and with complete sincerity, we will tell people about the pangolin. And she meant it. You could hear it. Not a performance, not a statement for effect, just a plain and honest promise from someone who had just learned something that mattered and intended to do something about it. Dr. Amara looked at her. Thank you, she said. They came out of the nocturnal house into the late afternoon. The sun was lower now, the light gold and long, and the center was moving into its evening routine. Keepers doing final checks, animals settling toward their nocturnal or diurnal states. The sounds were different from the morning, quieter in some places, more active in others, the daily rhythm of the place completing one of its cycles. Dr. Amara walked them to the main gate, and shook everyone's hands again, and gave each of them a small booklet about the center and its conservation work. And she gave Bobby a more detailed document that he accepted with both hands and immediately added to his clipboard with reverent efficiency. Derpy got a small card with a photo of the capybara on it. Nobody had arranged this. Dr. Amara simply produced it from her pocket with a small smile and put it in the carrier next to Derpy, who sniffed it and then sat on it, which Rumi decided was a positive response. They stood outside the gate as the center's evening settled around them, and the city they had come from felt very far away in the way cities do when you have spent a day somewhere that operates on entirely different terms. Thank you, Rumi said to Dr. Amara. Genuinely, for all of it. Come back, Dr. Amara said. The animals will remember you. Elephants, especially. If you come back in a year, Kessie, and Amina will know you. They will remember us from one day, Mira said. Elephants remember everything that matters to them, Dr. Amara said. And you gave them your attention. That matters. She went back inside, and the gate closed gently behind her. And the 9 of them stood in the car park in the long gold light. And nobody said anything for a moment, because the day had been too full for immediate words. Then the feathered hat Saja Boy said, I didn't know about meerkats. Any of it. I didn't know about pangolins, said the sock Saja Boy. I didn't know giraffes hum, said the sound desk Saja Boy. And he looked genuinely moved by this specific fact in a way that was very him. I didn't know capybaras got along with everyone, said Rumi, looking at Derpy. Derpy did, said Zoey. Derpy always knows, said Mira. Jinu was standing slightly apart, as he often was, looking back at the center building. He had been quieter than usual through the afternoon sections, and the quality of his quiet had been different from his usual quiet, less self-contained, more like the quiet of someone processing something large. Bobby came and stood next to him. The leopard, Bobby said, not a question. Jinu was quiet for a moment. Then he said what Dr. Amara said about keeping distance on purpose, because a leopard that trusts humans in the wild is in danger. He paused. Sometimes love looks like distance. Yes, Bobby said. Another pause. That is a thing I have known for a long time, Jinu said, without having words for it. Bobby made no note. He simply stood there, which was its own kind of answer. They went for dinner at a place Dr. Amara had recommended near the center. A warm restaurant with long wooden tables and good food, and the kind of easy, comfortable noise that means a room is full of people having a good time. They took the big corner table, and the food came in large shared dishes, and everyone ate with the appetite of people who have spent a full day genuinely paying attention to things and used a lot of themselves in the process. The conversation was easy and warm and kept returning, the way conversation does after a day like this, to the things they had seen and learned. The toast Saja Boy had drafted on his phone a list of 10 facts about Komodo dragons that he was going to share on his social media, which he showed to Dr. Amara via text. And she replied within 4 minutes with 3 additions and a correction about the venom, which he incorporated with genuine gratitude. Mira had taken out the center booklet and was reading it and asking questions about everything she did not understand, and writing the answers on a piece of paper she had found in her bag. The sound desk Saja Boy was composing what he described as an acoustic tribute to elephant infrasound, which was going to be a piece of music that incorporated frequencies at the lower edge of human hearing, inspired by the idea that the world is always vibrating with things we cannot quite catch. Bobby was writing up a full account of the day on his clipboard for his records, and it was already 8 pages. Zoey was reading her book, but occasionally saying things into the conversation that were always exactly right, the way Zoey's contributions always were, arriving at the precise moment they were most needed and saying exactly what the moment required. And Derpy was in his carrier under Rumi's chair with the capybara card, and his amber eyes were open in the warm restaurant light, and he was looking at nothing in particular and everything at once. The way cats look when they are thinking thoughts that have no human translation, but are clearly very complete. Later, on the way home, Rumi sat by the window of the car and watched the countryside going past in the dark and thought about everything. She thought about Kessie moving across the enclosure with the slow grace of something very large and very ancient. She thought about the capybara sitting by the fence and Derpy extending his paw toward it. She thought about Safi, the leopard, wild in her rehabilitation enclosure, 3 months from going home to Kenya, and about Dr. Amara's words. Sometimes love looks like distance. She thought about the pangolin, curled in the corner of its dim habitat, scales overlapping with perfect precision. 80 million years of doing exactly the right thing in a world that was suddenly doing the wrong things to it. She thought about what Dr. Amara had said. No, they exist. Make the invisible visible. She touched her bracelet. It was warm. She looked at Jinu in the seat beside her, asleep, his head tilted back slightly. The hard lines of his face, soft and sleek the way they rarely were when he was awake. And she thought about all the things she had learned today, about how different kinds of beings move through the world and make themselves known and protect the things they love. She thought she understood a few more things than she had this morning. That was a good day's work. Outside the window, the countryside gave way slowly to the beginning of the city, the first lights appearing, and then more, and then the full familiar glow of home, warm and amber and various. And Derpy made a small sound from his carrier that was not quite a question and not quite a statement, but was somewhere comfortably between the two. Nearly home, Rumi told him. His amber eyes glowed once, gently, in the dark of the carrier. Nearly home. Now, little one, the car has arrived. Everyone is home. Rumi is in her bed, under her yellow star quilt, thinking about elephants and the way they speak through the ground beneath their feet. Mira is asleep with the center booklet on her pillow, her face completely peaceful, dreaming of a young elephant with bright, curious eyes. Zoey has finished her book. She closed it quietly in the dark and lay down, and is already somewhere deep and still and good. Bobby is in his armchair with his 8 pages of notes on his clipboard, and his thermos on the floor, and his eyes closed, and his breathing slow. And somewhere in his neat and careful dreams, he is walking through a conservation center and making notes, and every animal he passes turns to look at him with warm and knowing eyes. The feathered hat Saja Boy is asleep, and in his dreams, the meerkats are standing sentinel and teaching their young, and the world is organized and purposeful, and everyone knows their role. The toast Saja Boy is asleep with his phone on his chest, and the Komodo dragon facts are saved in his notes. And tomorrow he will share them with the world. The sound desk Saja Boy is asleep with his notebook open on the pillow beside him, and the acoustic elephant tribute is half written in it. And the frequencies will be right. He knows they will be right. The socks Saja Boy is asleep with his socks off, and a smile on his face that has been there since Gabriel, the sea turtle, moved through his tank with 3 flippers and absolute ease. Jinu is asleep. He is dreaming about a leopard with golden eyes, wild and complete and fully itself. And in the dream, the leopard is safe, running through long grass in the dark of an African night under enormous stars, going home. And Derpy is on his pale blue velvet sofa with the capybara card, and his paws tucked, and his tail curled, and his amber eyes closed, and he is dreaming something warm and brown, and gentle and enormous, and the world outside is full of animals. Right now, at this very moment, while you are warm in your bed, meerkats standing sentinel in the Kalahari, elephants feeling the vibrations of rain through their feet on the other side of the world, humpback whales singing songs that travel across entire ocean basins, giraffes humming very quietly in the dark, pangolins moving through the night on their ancient, unhurried business, capybaras sitting peacefully beside everything, at ease with all of it, all of them here, all of them real, all of them going about the remarkable, ordinary business of being alive, the same way you are going about the remarkable, ordinary business of being alive, in your warm bed, in the safe dark, breathing slowly. The world is so full of living things, and you are one of extraordinary thing to be. Close your eyes now, little one. Let your arms go heavy. Let your legs go still. Let your breathing find its own slow rhythm. In and out, like the tide, like an elephant breathing, like a whale deep in the ocean, sending its song across the water. Your dream is ready. It is warm and full and alive. Close your eyes. There it is. Good night, little one. Good night, par crescent sparkles.